Emily, it's wonderful to have you in the show.
There
For
will
our
always come those emails where people are trying to get you to click on a link or like have an offer like, oh, like you're gonna win $1,000, and a lot of people will fall for it, unfortunately. Well, in traditional stocks, a human goes in and does all of this monitoring and detection manually, but now that we're in the new generation, there's new gen stocks as well. Users' access must be assessed after a certain period, like it's called provisioning, making sure that all these people make make sure that they have the correct access as well, not just implementing zero trust, but the identity and access management aspect. We need to make sure that these people have the correct access and they only have access to the things that they're authorized to see. Or a regular user should not have administrator access. I would definitely say keep track, no matter who the user is, definitely keep track of all of the actions a user takes on your network and on your platform. Since anyone can get into cybersecurity if you just have the necessary training, do the self-learning, get some certification. It doesn't matter how old or young you are. It doesn't really change your ability to learn.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into another episode of Scale to Zero. I'm Purushottam, co-founder and CTO of Cloudanix. Scale to Zero is a forum where we invite security experts to learn about their journey, discuss on security topics, and get answers to questions from security professionals. For today's episode, we have Emily Zakkak with us. Emily is working as a cybersecurity specialist at Cenovate, a global managed security services provider, which is dedicated to protecting their clients' organization from cyber threats using IAM, security operations center, and social engineering defense capabilities. Emily is a first generation computer science student studying at San Diego State University. Emily, it's wonderful to have you in the show. For our viewers, do you want to briefly share about your journey?
Of course, thank you, Peru. So a little bit about my journey. I actually really got into cybersecurity last summer, the summer of 2022, and I started developing all of those skills. I did a lot of training in cybersecurity. I was using a lot of websites such as like TryHackMe and Fortinet and doing all of this security awareness training as well as learning about things like Active Directory. So with all of this training, I was also really doing a lot of job searching, searching for internships or full-time positions. And honestly, I am so lucky to be here at Cenovate, and Cenovate just they took a chance on me. They're doing a bunch of training with me and making me into the best cybersecurity professional possible, and I am learning so much on the job here. And I am just so happy to be here with you today as well.
Absolutely. It's lovely to have you here as well. I'm looking forward to the conversation where we can learn. At least I can learn few things from what you have learned in past year, right? So I want to start the discussion with like phishing attacks or social engineering attacks. It's mostly inevitable, like we cannot avoid that. So what are the best ways for organizations to collect data about these incidents, identify what is happening, and notify their security staff?
Yes, you're completely right that social engineering attacks are sadly inevitable. There will always come those emails where people are trying to get you to click on a link or like have an offer like, oh, like you're gonna win $1,000. It's very bad and a lot of people will fall for it, unfortunately. So there will always be threat actors out there trying to steal all of this like sensitive information. So the best way to handle these incidents, I would say, is to have a plan prepared, like an incident response plan. And having an incident response plan is very important for any organization just because it gives you a structured way to respond to those incidents. A lot of organizations, they currently say like, oh, we'll just deal with this incident when it comes up. and the incident happens and they suddenly do not know what to do, or they don't have good communication. So definitely, as well as an incident response plan, it's very good to have good communication between all of your workers, no matter which sector they're working in. Like even the lawyers and the people working in the law aspect of your organization still need to be connected with the security team and the IT team in your organization
Hmm.
to really have that incident response plan and make it work. And as well as that, all of these incidents, they can be collected through logs, and these logs generate alerts. And when these alerts come in, you can find out where the suspicious things are happening. And this usually stems from the, for example, someone might get an email and they click on the, for example, let's say it's a download link. They
Hmm.
download it, and in the back end something will be, for example, running. Like it will be a malicious file, for example, and it will start doing something very suspicious, and the logs will collect this alert, and they will start to see, oh, where did this come from, which IP address, who downloaded this file that is starting this malicious activity. So that's definitely a way for the security team in any organization to keep track of where those incidents are coming from.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I have a follow up question on this. Can organizations anticipate and prevent these attacks? Is there a way to do it?
Yes, absolutely. With this new generation of technology, there's all of these threats, of course, and everyone needs to be aware of these threats. Not just the security team needs to be aware, everybody in their organization should be aware. Like, for example, security awareness training is a must for any organization in any industry. And no matter which industry you're working in, it's still going to be important for your assets to be secured, for your data to be secured. So everyone needs to understand that security is the responsibility of everybody in the organization. It's not just one person or a group of people. It's the entire organization's um, like leading on this like security awareness, because all it takes is one person to open a malicious file or download something or click a link, and everything will be destroyed, and it will just start a disaster
Hmm.
to happen in any company. So for example, like our company here at Senovate, we work with Webroot, and it provides us to manage a service for our clients, for example, to lead social engineering defense. So we do phishing simulation, we do all of this training and educational videos to help our clients understand that security is everyone's job. It's not just the security team's job. You need to be very careful before clicking on a link or doing something suspicious, especially on a company owned machine, for example, because all it takes is one mess up and the entire attack will begin to propagate, and it could become something very big, like for example a data breach, or just stealing all of these machines and attacking them.
Right, right. I like the two things that you highlighted. One is it's not just the security team's responsibility to make sure that the whole org is secure, right? And
Mhm.
the second part is the training aspect, because most of the times it feels like, yeah, it's the security team, they will take care of it, I don't need to know anything, I'm okay, right? But it's not about that. It's about training your employees so that they know if something looks fishy, how to act on it, how to maybe reach out to your security team saying that, hey, it looks fishy, maybe take a
Mhm.
look at it. No, so having that
Yeah.
training and the communication channel between the security team and the other parts of the organization. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You highlighted incident response planning, right, a little bit. So I want to talk
Mhm.
about that. So every organization like sets up some plan, right, as part of their security program setup. And I believe SOC 2 highly recommends that you should have necessary controls in place for incident response plan. So, what are the three areas, according to you, should be considered when defining the security controls around, let's say, vulnerabilities or incidents?
Hmm. So for me, I believe that these top three areas should encompass monitoring, detecting, and responding to the incident. Because all of these problems, they need to be found. So we can't really respond to a problem if it's not found. A lot of companies, they might not have a security operations center, for example. If they don't have a security operations center, how will they find out where the suspicious attacks are coming from? So that's just one piece of what I think. And definitely, as well as that, response and reporting is very important for the incident response plan, because it gives you like a structured way to see all of the things that happened, and definitely it helps with the lessons learned after an incident has happened and then it's been remediated. Your company should definitely like learn these lessons and see what should change for next time.
Hmm. So, do you have any suggestions on what maybe what process or procedures to be followed? Let's say there is an incident happening. What procedures should be followed to address the incident?
So, I would like to also talk about something that I find super important, which is a security operations center, or SOC for short.
Hmm.
Well, in traditional SOCs, a human goes in and does all of this monitoring and detection manually, but now that we're in the new generation, there's new gen SOCs as well. So now there's much more alerts than actual SOC analysts to go in and look at all of these alerts and remediate them. So the best way to get the most out of your SOC is now to utilize OpenXDR, which is also known as Open Extended Detection and Response. And at Cenovate, we also provide this platform called the OpenXDR platform, and it's powered by our partner Stellar Cyber, and it integrates with all applications, and it provides extended visibility over all of the endpoints, cloud identity, SaaS-based applications. It collects all of the logs from all of these different aspects, and it puts them into one platform. And also with this platform, it's not only 360-degree visibility, but also it uses now artificial intelligence and machine learning to do all the detection and correlation between events. For example, if we have an event happening in, for example, let's say the firewall, someone is trying to attack the firewall and get in. Well, what if there is a event that's happening from, let's say, a login, like someone is trying to log in and it keeps failing, and if they're both from the same IP address, the artificial intelligence and machine learning will do this correlation and say, oh, these two events are definitely related. So then you can really pinpoint where the true threats are in the organization and work to remediate it. So definitely before there's something called these legacy platforms, which let's give an example like Splunk. If we use Splunk and then we pile on a bunch of other platforms, it's just going to cost a lot for the organization. Small to mid-sized companies, they can't really
Afford,
spend millions
yeah,
of dollars.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They can't really afford all of these different platforms, and then when you have all these different platforms and they're all separate, they're not integrated together. You need a specific team for each single platform, and they're all separate. But with OpenXDR, you have that visibility. It brings everything into one platform where you can do the detection, which is automatically done, and you can do the response both in one platform. So as the as the years continue to go, I definitely see more companies turning to open extended detection and response,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's much more efficient in doing the detection and response. The traditional security operations center will be completely like reinvented, and all of those, like for example, people can get up to like 3,000, let's say 3,000 alerts per day. And then by the time all of your SOC analysts they go through all of these alerts, there's going to be even more alerts on top of it. So
Mm-hmm.
then they might just give up trying to find where the true threat is. But this way, it's completely new, completely modern, and it really helps out SOC analysts and the security team as well.
Okay. So the message that I'm getting from your response is that you invest in the right tooling rather than having
Mhm,
20 different tools. Maybe if you can bring everything to one SOC platform, then that
mhm.
helps the SOC team analyze faster, and that also helps in remediation of those faster as well. And that,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's makes a lot of sense, particularly nowadays where we have so many tools, right? If you pick any area and you have so many tools to choose from, so yeah, that's absolutely on the money. uh, I want to talk about IAM a little bit. Most organizations, when they are, let's say, building applications or platforms or tools, they incorporate trust capabilities, right? In implicit trust capability. And when I say implicit trust, you sign into one of the systems, you are remembered, right? So you are not always asked to verify your identity. Um, do you like can this access be compromised so that it affects the security of the organization?
Absolutely. Through implicit trust, it's just going to be easier for an attacker to get into the network and start propagating their attack, and they will just completely take over your entire network if you allow them to.
Hmm.
You can't really trust an end user just because you don't really know who that end user is at times. Like with the amount of data breaches that have happened, for example, um, all of these like usernames and passwords they get stolen, and then if someone, for example, logs in and there is no additional security layer to verify who the person that is logging in is the true person that is supposed to log in,
Hmm.
it can really cause an entire disaster, which is actually something that can be prevented just by implementing zero trust. You cannot trust the end user. You need to add more layers of security to make sure that that person is who they say they are.
Makes sense. So when you say zero trust, can you expand on that a little bit? Like, how can zero trust be applied in IAM? Maybe if you have an
Absolutely.
example, that will help as well.
Absolutely. So identity and access management and zero trust are just a great combination. So an example of zero trust is definitely multi-factor authentication, or MFA. So multi-factor authentication is just going to, once the person logs in, they are going to have to take additional steps to validate their identity. So this can be through SMS message, it can be through an authenticator app, it can be through a one-time password. Because, for example, if we're using MFA, this would mean that the attacker would not only have to have access to your credentials, the attacker would also, for example, have to have access to, let's say, your phone number, because this code is coming to your phone number, and hopefully the attacker has not been able to successfully steal your phone number. So, so it would make it easier to validate your identity through sending a code or a one-time password or a notification to an authenticator app to directly make sure that this person that is logging in is you.
Hmm.
And additionally, it is also critical that users' access must be assessed after a certain period. Like It's called provisioning,
Hmm.
making sure that all these people make to make sure that they have the correct access as well, not just implementing zero trust, but the identity and access management aspect. We need to make sure that these people have the correct access and they only have access to the things that they're authorized to see. So, for example, a regular end user, for example, should not have administrator access into your system. That would not, it might not pose an immediate threat, but they could go in and accidentally go and mess something up in your system, which is still a threat even if it can be accidental.
Hmm. Yeah, I see what you're trying to say, right? So I have a sort of slightly follow up question on that, and we received this from a company which has 100 engineers, let's say, and they're trying to ensure that their IAM assignments are valid and they follow the principle of least privilege. So, what can they do? What steps they can take to ensure that the assignments are valid and also they're following these privileges? Principle of least
Yeah,
privilege.
that's definitely a great question. I'm glad that these companies are actually like taking the time to ask these questions, and that just shows that they have the initiative and they really care about their company's security, which I'm just happy to see. So you can begin with evaluating the effectiveness of your identity access management policies. So in identity and access management, there's a bunch of policies that have to be followed, and it can be implemented. And sometimes there's, for example, groups within identity and access management, and each specific group, whoever is assigned to these groups, they will have specific amounts of access. So you can do the provisioning that way to follow the life cycle, the identity and access management life cycle. So something that can really help is to also grant access based on the user's role in the organization. Like I said before, a regular user should not have administrator
Yeah.
access. And that is just something that I find very important, to grant that access based on the user's role. And it's also critical that the user's access, like I said before, is assessed constantly.
Hmm.
Because, for example, if someone leaves the company and they're still, let's say, inside of this identity access management platform, let's
Hmm.
say, they still have an account, they still have their credentials, and they still have their access. That can't be good for your company just because this person is gone. They are not under that contract anymore, and they now still have the credentials, they still have the access, and they can go in and do whatever they want. And that's just not good for them. It can definitely cause data breaches. It can definitely cause. Uh, I would say it's still technically an insider threat, just because they still have that access to the organization and all of the information in the organization.
Hmm.
So these are just some steps to follow that least privilege, like you said, which is very important in any organization. It's very important to hold the person that also has the most access accountable for their actions. So another thing that I would say for the privileged access, I would definitely say keep track, no matter who the user is, definitely keep track of all of the actions the user takes on your network and on your
Okay.
platform. And this can definitely help with monitoring and detecting where these threats are, whether it's an outsider threat. And definitely insider threats are now just as prevalent as outsider threats, which is why, like we said before, zero trust is definitely the way to go, because the threats are no longer just outside of your organization, they can also be inside of your organization.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to understand, like, what would you advise in case of a company? Let's say, I'll give an example, right? So, a lot of companies are were in hosting their services on premises, right? Like they have their own servers and stuff like that. Now everybody is moving to cloud, right? A lot of folks, a lot of organizations are moving to the cloud. So for some duration, both on premise and the cloud needs to exist, and even for some businesses both needs to coexist for longer duration as well, right? So,
Mhm.
what challenges do you see when the organization is trying to make sure that both the systems are alive, they are connecting to each other, and how do you manage permissions in that case? Like who has access to what, and what are the challenges, and how can those be addressed?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the main challenges that I see associated with this is the seamless integration between on-premise, of course, and cloud, and identity and access management and compliance. So with the challenges to this on-premise and cloud, combining them, definitely it is very important to have a unified identity and access management solution. So there are actually a lot of identity and access management solutions out there that give that integration now more than ever, because they started to realize that the on-premise and cloud, they both need to be secure. We can't just secure the cloud and not have the on-premise secure. So they're starting to give this integration. And additionally, definitely the compliance side. There, due to the compliance, you also need to have identity and access management just to follow those guidelines and regulations for any industry. Every industry has their own compliance laws,
Mm-hmm,
so it's very important to follow those. So another thing that we can do to manage both cloud and on-premise systems is by also using encryption,
mm-hmm,
which I'm pretty sure that's already very obvious that we should use encryption, because you don't want your data being sent over from on-premise to cloud and back and forth without the proper encryption method, and without doing it in a secure way.
mm-hmm,
If you send over these messages in let's say plain text, it's going to be possible to intercept it and then see what that information is, which can be really detrimental to your company's data. And I definitely say definitely
mm-hmm.
always secure your information using encryption. And all of that data sharing that's happening definitely also needs to be encrypted.
Makes a lot of sense, and I love your pointers, right? For each of these areas, what action should be taken. So yeah, that's a great way to end the securities discussion. Here are a few important points that stood out for me. The first one is incident response plan is a must in order to fight phishing or social engineering attacks. Second one is security is the responsibility of the entire org and not just of the security team. To bring awareness, security awareness training should be conducted with other teams in the organization. The third one is whenever possible, implement MFA across applications and avoid implicit trust across applications. This would help in avoiding large scale data breaches. We have the rapid fire section now. So, the first question that I have for you is if you were a superhero of cybersecurity, which power would you choose to have in you?
I actually really like this question. So if I was a cybersecurity superhero, I would want to be, for example, like similar to there's this character in one of these shows that I used to like as a kid called the Teen Titans, and I would want to be similar to Cyborg, because he can actually like go into every single computer and see all of these computers, because he's like half robot. So he can go into all of these computers and see what's going on, see all of the information, and I would actually use those powers to stop cyber attacks. I think
Yeah,
that would
that
be
would
so
be,
cool.
yeah, absolutely. The next question is, what's the biggest lie you have heard in cybersecurity?
So the biggest lie I've heard in cybersecurity is that you can't get into cybersecurity unless you're like a specific age, which I think is really funny because it just doesn't make any sense. Anyone can get into cybersecurity if you just have the necessary training, do the self-learning, get some certifications, and that's really all it takes. It doesn't matter how old or young you are. It doesn't really change your ability to learn. Cybersecurity is all about learning and just growing and getting better at securing the world. So anyone can do it, even if you're very old, even if you're like me, 20 years old. You can do all of these best practices just by learning and getting that hands-on experience and getting that training. So yeah, that's the biggest lie I've heard in cybersecurity. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it never will make any sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree on that. So, on a little follow up on that, what are some of the blogs or books or websites that you go to stay up to date?
Mhm. So some of the things that I use to stay up to date in cybersecurity is a bunch of newsletters. I see a lot of newsletters in LinkedIn, and one of my favorite ones is the one from my own company, Cenovate. Cenovate has a really good newsletter, and they provide a lot of important like statistics on all of these cybersecurity data breaches, for example, and how how it was before, how it's increasing, what needs to change. So I find that really informative and really good to get that awareness out there. And another one that I really like is the Hacker Feed app. I have it downloaded on my phone. I like to sometimes scroll through it when I'm not doing anything else, just because I want to see like what's happening in the world, what's getting breached, what are hackers doing to, like, for example, like penetration testing. Some
Hmm.
people post on there about penetration testing. Some of them are just real attacks made by real threat actors. So I find it very interesting to also get that awareness as well through the Hacker Feed app. Because definitely, if you're working on, let's say, if you're working on a blue team, you definitely need to know how the red team works. And if you're working on a
Hmm.
red team, you definitely need to know how the blue team works. Yeah. And one
Yeah,
more is I like to also follow a lot of cybersecurity professionals on LinkedIn. So I definitely get a lot of information through them, and definitely dedicate my current success and the way that I'm continuing to move up to them, just because they always really helped me stay informed. They really helped me get those resources that I needed when I was really starting out in cybersecurity. So now I'm starting to gain that awareness and know even more and really apply that to the job that I'm currently in. So I
hmm,
find that really insightful and amazing.
lovely. So, what we'll do is when we publish this video, we'll tag some of these blogs or newsletters that you highlighted so that our viewers can also take advantage of those.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. I also have some like specific people on LinkedIn that I really want to share with the world, like some really amazing people that really helped me, really gave me those resources, and just are continuing to always support me in everything that I do.
Yeah, we'd love to give a shout out to those folks as well. If you feel comfortable sharing their names, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Definitely one of them is David Nisi. He's really prevalent in cybersecurity, and he really enjoys helping people break into cybersecurity, just like myself. He was like one of the first people that I followed on LinkedIn. He was really inspiring and motivating to me, and he is like one of the reasons why I am where I am, and just also one of the reasons why I do what I do. So
Okay.
I really would recommend him to a lot of people out there.
Okay. Absolutely. We'll give him a shout out, and we'll
Yeah,
say thanks for sure.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a great way to end the episode. Thank you so much, Emily, for coming to the show. And it was lovely speaking with you. There are many things that I learned, and I'm hoping that our viewers or listeners will learn something new from it as well. So, thank you so much for coming to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peru. I was so happy to be here and share my insight in cybersecurity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Hope you learned something new from today's episode. If you have any questions around security, share those at scale20.com and we'll get those answered by an expert in the security space. See you in the next episode. Thank you.